Atmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagini Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat. So, I was just thinking that we'll do a very quick revision because yesterday's live stream was not successful. So, I'll just do a very quick revision where I'll cover what we covered yesterday. Then we graduate to the next sutra. We started with the Nartaka Atma, who is that the script writer, the director, the actor is all the self, the Paramatma Tattva. That we had done the verse number 9. Now the question is, where does this drama take place? Where does it play out? What is the platform on which everything plays out? It says Rango Antaratma in this sutra number 10. And he's explaining it there. Rangaha Tattad Bhumika Grahana Sthanam. What is that Rangamancha? Different roles that the self assumes or appears to assume. That the same thing appears in multiple forms. The same consciousness, same Atma sort of seems to assume different roles. In Vedanta, that this will be false. Only Atma is true. But here in Kashmiri Saivism, they are saying that same Paramashiva is unfolding, play acting, and expanding and manifesting this whole universe, where he is present in every bit of the drama. And that is what we are explaining, that Ranga. And where does that play out? There he is using the word Antaratma. So what is Atma and what is Antaratma? Antaratma refers to the Puryashtaka or the Sukshma Sarira. So the Antaratma here would refer, now the inner soul where refers to the the Antar Sarira or the Puryashtaka, the Sukshma Sarira, where everything plays out. I will explain how that the Tikakaras are explaining. Tattat Bhumika Grahanasthanam Antaratma Sankocha Abhabhasa Satatvaha. Sankocha Abhabhasa. This Lord Shiva, in order to play the role of Jivas, like he's playing out the role through all of us, has he become human beings? Has he become limited? No, he hasn't become limited. Then how that grand thing is appearing as limited, is having love and hatred and raga, dvesha and emotions and all that manifests through the jivas? That is what the kind of is referred to as sankocha abhavasa satatvaha. The Swarupa is as if this is kind of being just delusional presence. Abhavasa, it is just a faulty representation of that which is Sunya Pradhanama. It's actually Purnataha, that Antaratma is not different. The Jivatma is not different from Paramatma, but Upadhi Vedat. Earlier we discussed Atma, Indriya, and all these Upadhis. If you add, that becomes Bhukta, and Upanishads also say. With body and Indriyas and Antakaranas, we become Jiva. You remove all this, pure consciousness is no different from that absolute Ishvara consciousness. Prana Padhanova Puryashtaka Niyandrito Jivaha. Puryashtaka, as I had mentioned yesterday, it's essentially the Pancha Tanmatras. Pancha Tanmatras means Pancha Sukshma Bhutas, or Bhuta Sukshmas means the subtle Pancha Tanmatras. Tat Matra Tanmatra. These are the Pancha Bhutas which cannot be experienced through any measuring instruments. Rupa, like for example, sparsha, sabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. These are the five tattvas. So when they become manifest, then you can see or you can feel or you can smell. But when they are in their sukshma avastha, they are not available to us, and therefore the Upanishads refer to them as avyakrita, non-manifest. That is what he's saying. Puryashtaka niyantrito, five tanmatras plus manabuddhi ahankara. These are the eight, the like Puryashtaka, these are the eight domains in which this Atma is established. But in Vedanta, in traditional, like for example in Viveka Chudamani, as we had discussed yesterday, they will have different ways to look at the Puryashtaka. They will count, say for example, the Pancha Tanmatras, then Pancha Gyanendriyas, Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Pranas, and then they would take the Ichcha, Avidya, and karma. With ichcha, karma. So that is how pancha gyanendriya, pancha karma, karmendriya, pancha tanmatras, and pancha pranas, and all these together they will count 8. They have another way of looking at it. Makes no difference. Both of them are referring to the sukshma sarira, the subtle body of the jiva. Therefore, this sukshma sarira travels even though the physical seed falls. We cremate it, we bury it, or we burn it. But then that jivatma travels with the sanskaras and the memories and papa punyas, the sukshma sarira travels. Tatra hi ayam kritapadaha. So this yogi, how this whole antaratma is a playing field, swakarana parispanda kramena jagannatya avhasayati. Now, this is not for the common person. The common person, of course, is lost in the external world. He thinks the external world is real. But for the yogis, for him, Rango Antaratma. The play field is not the external platform on which everything is happening. The yogi who is absorbed in himself and he's play acting in the outside world, but he's very, very intelligent. Therefore, you know, there are 3 4 ways in which you look at abhinaya, as Lakshman Juji is explaining. So let's imagine somebody is playing the role of Lord Shiva. So you look at him and you see, oh my God, he's real Lord Shiva. There's no difference. Then that is Sattvic Abhinaya, 100%. There's somebody else and kind of acts. So he's on the borderline case. You said, yeah, he looks like Shiva. There is some good amount of presence of Shivahood in this actor, but then rest of it doesn't gel. And then there is a Tamashika guy where he comes and acts, and yeah, he's a human being. He's acting as Shiva. He's good acting. He's not Shiva. There's nothing to do with Shiva. It's just so these are Sattvika, Rajasika, and Tamashika Abhinaya. Now, the yogi is a Sattvika Abhinata in the sense he carries the whole consciousness with him. Whatever role he plays, he's 100% there. At the same time, he knows, as we discussed in the previous sloka, in the sutra, that he knows that I'm an actor. Because Swarupataha, I cannot be in these details of samsara and the details, the emotions, the highs and lows of life. So he is not caught up in anything, and he is constantly aware of his Swarupa and what is playing out. And is 100% being able to do it because he sees himself as a Avineta. He's doing that role. And there is a clarity of vision as to who is he and what he's doing. There is no confusion, absolutely. So he's able to retain his purity and his spirituality even though he's engaged in the everyday life. That is what he's mentioning in the verse number 10. So nrutyataha asya atmanaha samyak adharartham ato avavat. So he's saying Vahir Unmesha Bhagyo Ayam Atma Nartakaha Uchyate. So Nartaka Atma, that we have already done it. We are now going to the next one. Evam Vidha Jagat Natya Nartakasya Asya Yoginaha Bhumika Grahanastanam Rangam Aham Jagad Guru. Lord Shiva is saying, where does everything is playing out? It's playing out in his consciousness. And there are different ways in which this also happens. The external body, physically we are present during the waking state, because when we are watching a cricket match, we are physically there, we are watching that cricket match. But in the dream, if you are watching a football match or you are watching a cricket match, you are not physically there. Everything is within you, everything is playing out within you. It's you who is watching the cricket match within you, and you are also the cricket match, because there is no reality other than you in your dream. Everything is our own creation in our dreams. Evam vidha Jagannatya. He's saying Rajyate Asmin Jagannatya Krida Kautakana Atmana iti Rango Antaratma iti Jivaha Puryastakatmagaha. That is what his Varadaraja is saying. Now the commentator is mentioning below Samprati Asya Vishwanatya Pravartakasya Bhumika Grahana Sthana Rangam aha rango antaratma. The last commentary is saying, he's explaining where does it all play out in the antaratma. Antaratma is the sukshma sarira of that particular yogi. Aneka vidha karya karana bhavatmaka. Karya and the causal aspects, and then there are effects. Bhavatmaka bitata sansara. This whole sansara is a game of different kinds of causes and effects, like we have sattvas, rajas, and tamas, and then different kinds of papas and punyas. There are there's a causal chain through which this whole sansara plays out, is laid out before us. Bitata sansara, natya krida kautakatmana. Now, this sansara is not real. Why does Lord Shiva says it's part of his game? And this is happening, and the yogi is aware of it. He is also participating in it as if he is really Lord Shiva. He's participating in it because he is already established in a very high state. So he is everywhere and yet he is nowhere. That's what he's trying to say. Atmana yatra rajyate sarangaha. That is what is happening in his subjectivity. Tattad vichitra bhumika grahana padavandhastanam. So all that different roles are played out, and then our subjectivity also sort of seem to undergo some change. It's all happening here, then it's manifested in the outside world. Antaratma prana puryashtaka niyantrita jivaha sankocha abhavasa satatva sunya pradhanova. Whatever Kshemaraja says, or the Brittikara says, he is the saying same thing. Tatrahi ayam yogi janaha. Here this yogi, the sadhaka, kritapadaha, is successful. Swa indriya spandalilaya. So through his own, his indriyas, and the vibration of it, as if he's there, he's watching it. Sahaja swatyantra saktir. And because he's already having the sahaja vidya tat mohajayat, because you control your maya, so that means you're transcending that bheda buddhi, that duality. Therefore you are graduating from that samana state where the mind is still sort of hiding at the back, at the backside of the mind. The sanskaras are still hiding, but you graduate to the next level. We're ascending in the urmana stage, where we are going towards shiva vyapti from the atma vyapti, that we have discussed. He is already there. Therefore, he's saying Vichitra Bhumika. So, Indriya Spandana Lilaya Sahaja Swatantra Sakti Vispuranatatmana Antare Indriya Parispandana Kramena Sada Sivadi Dharani Antar Vishwanatyam Prakasayati. So, starting with Sadasiva till the Prithvi Tattva, all 36 Tattvas is mentioning that all these levels are manifestations from the subtlest to the grossest, the material world. He watches and he imagines that everything is played out, because he is no more distinguishing himself and the Shiva Tattva, because he is established in that Parama consciousness, in the supreme consciousness. Um, it's a very magical state in which the sadhaka is here and not here. He's here and he's everywhere. He is acting in particular situations, discharging specific duties, assuming certain names and forms, and yet he knows all this is happening. Per se, he is not affected by anything. He limits this whole participation in the external world, or the internal world, remember, to the level of his subjectivity. Because his purity of existence is beyond this human subjectivity. It's beyond the Sukshma Sarira, because Sukshma Sarira is also delusional. It's also assumed. It's also one of these assumptions, because the perfect reality of who we are is beyond the Sthula Sarira and the Sukshma Sarira. That is our Atma Bhava. So he is already established there. Therefore, he's saying all this is happening. He's being able to watch himself, watch what is happening, how he is participating, how his subjectivity is getting entangled, but he's all the time absorbed in his pure self. Therefore, he's saying Rango Antaratma. That is how he's saying. Then, in the next verse, then we had done it also. Who are the people who are watching? Who is the audience of these? How does he watch? Rango Antaratma, he mentioned. So, there is one explanation. Who this Antaratma, who he travels from one body to another, He's saying Puryashtaka Samavesad Vicharan Sarva Yonishu, because you have this eightfold domain in which this Sukshma Sarira is established, and therefore Vicharan, he goes Sarva Yonishu, different, he goes from one mother to another, one physical form to another, one subjectivity to another, he travels. Antaratma Savigyaha, that is what is called in Swachhanda Tantra, that is where it is mentioned. Therefore, he's saying something what is very interesting here is Esho Devo Anaya Devya Nityam Krida Rasotsukaha. Because this Paramashiva is interested in this playfulness. He wants to play out this game. And how does he do it? With the help of Shakti, with the help of that Shakti that he has. Vichitran Srishti Sangharan Vidhatte Yugapat Vibhuhu. So, sometimes someone is being born, somebody is dying. Somebody is happy, somebody is sad. Somewhere something is starting, somewhere something is ending. These are all happening simultaneously. And yet, the real witness self, the scriptwriter, he is constantly in a state of vibration, is dynamic, that is Paramashiva Tattva, the pure consciousness. Everything is playing out, and he's just having fun. He's watching it because he is, in fact, everywhere. He is manifesting in a person dying, in a baby being born, somebody is young, somebody is old, somebody is in disease. It's all Lord Shiva manifesting everywhere. He's watching everything, everything is happening. Okay. And that yogi, when he realizes this, because he now realizes his non-dual identification, non-difference with that Paramashiva Tattva, he as if is manifesting everything. Like Lord Shiva is doing, the yogi having established himself in that Shiva Vyapti is able to identify with this whole cosmic game as if that's all happening. And he's watching. He's not fantasizing, he's really participating in it. At the same time, he's in that pure state, he's fully integral. It's a very interesting thing. So this we remember that Bhagavad Gita sloka that we had done. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyami yasyam jagarti bhutani sha nisha pashyato munehe. Two categories of people: those who are externally oriented, and there are people who are internally oriented. What is exciting, useful, real, and fantastic for the normal people, they are boring and they are repulsive for the yogi, because he is interested and he is established in himself. So when the people are moving all around like a nocturnal animal, he is asleep. He wakes up when everybody goes to sleep. What does that mean? The domain where everybody finds happiness, everybody finds a reason for involvement, that is the domain in which the yogi is not interested. The yogi is interested in the domain of the self. And that is the domain of night for common people who is interested in doing meditation, satsang, and all kinds of things. But the yogi is what wakes up in that particular subtle reality. And therefore, this the game that is happening, ascendance and descendance, or involution and evolution, whatever you mention. And then he hides himself. The Shiva becomes Jiva, and then he does sadhana. Then he gets liberated. All these are different pictures, and all these pictures are being played out by that Shiva consciousness, that Parama consciousness. And the yogi is watching all this. Therefore, he kind of experiences as if he is doing everything and is established in his pure self. Then he's saying, who is the audience in this? What is the nature of his sense organs? Generally, what is the nature of our sense organs? Our eyes see external realities. Our ears hear sounds which are outside. Sometimes you may have some yogic experience where you are in meditation, you listen, you smell the fragrance of some very beautiful flower. It's possible, it happens in yoga. Or you are in deep meditation and you see Ma Saraswati in your vision, or you see Ma Kali appearing before your mind's eye. Or you might hear the ringing of the bell in some temple or church when you are in deep meditation, even though it may be midnight, you may be in your bedroom, there's no such reality, but you may listen to them. And I've listened to a lot of people. They, during the heydays in the, during of their sadhana, they all have had these kind of experiences. Some people get sandalwood smell, some people get the smell of cremation ground. It's very strange. Some people get and the ringing of the bell at a particular moment in night. And recently somebody was telling me she feels that there are some energies who are surrounding her every day at 2 o'clock. And these are all possible in yogic life. It's not delusional. These things, these are slightly, you can get into parapsychology to understand all that, but there are certain subtle realities with which the consciousness connects without the intervention or mediation of the external senses. So now in the next verse, in the sutra number 11, we are discussing what is the nature of the sense organs of this very evolved yogi. And he says, Prekshakani Indriyani. Prekshakas, the audience, the people who are watching. Now this whole game which is unfolding within, which is happening inside, that is being watched by whom? The Indriyas. But Indriyas can only see external realities. But in case of a yogi, because his sense organs are kind of inverted, they are oriented inwards. They are no more trying to see things outside. They have been withdrawn. Shanta, Danta, Uparataha. So they have done Indriya Nigraha, they have Mano Nigraha. So Indriya Nigraha is Dama, and Shama is Mano Nigraha. Then Uparataha is sitting withdrawal, and then he's sitting in meditation. Then these sense organs start seeing that Antaratma and all that is happening there, the Nartagatma, they are able to see. So that is what is saying. Let us look at the commentary, and that is interesting. And we'll go to the next one. He's saying, Evam Dehantara Deha Antarange Asya Nartakasya, of this drama Nartakatma Atmanaha Indriyani Darshaka Sthaniyani Bhavanti iti Nirdisati Prekshekani Indriyani. So they are the people who are watching the sense organs. They see this whole drama which is happening within. That means essentially that you develop that sixth sense and you have a deeper sense of um, you know being able to experiencing reality which is within, for which the external sense organs are not very useful. The person turns inward, then he develops a higher sense of seeing the reality, connecting with the reality. So he's saying Suprabuddha Chidatma Eva. This particular person who is very expansive, that Chidatma Eva, because the first sutra of this Siva Sutra is Chaitanya Mahatma. Jnanam Bandha, inappropriate knowledge is bondage. That Atma is Chaitanya Atmaka Sachidananda Swarupa, that is Chaitanya Mahatma. Suprabuddha Chidatma Eva Indriyanam Avabhasaita Asti. If you see through your eyes, you see through your eyes because there is a self. We hear through our ears because there is the self. Without Atma, nothing is visible. Tameva Bhantam Anuvati Sarvam. This is the provider of light. It's like the sunlight which is coming, and then some boys are playing with some mirrors and they are reflecting those mirrors inside some caves or some inner rooms. And these mirrors are reflecting light in the room, and people are thinking they are providing light, but actually it's the sun which is providing light. That is the Vedanta line of argument, that the Atma is Swayam Prakasa. As a result of the Atma, everything else is gaining its appearance, its visibility, its meaning. Whatever we attribute to it is because of the light or luminosity which is at its source, which is the Atma Tattva. And same thing he's saying here, that Darsaka Sthaniyani Bhavanti Niridasanti Prikshakani Supta Prabruddha Chidatma Eva Indriyanam Avabhasa Iti. He is the one who gives light to all these small, small torch lights called the Indriyas. Yotohi Tasya Atma Jyotishaha Pradiptya, because with the by dint of the light of this particular Atma Jyoti, the light of the self, Sarvam Idam Nama Rupatmakam Paridrishyamanam. This whole sansara with names and forms, which is available through our naked eyes, is because of that Atma Tattva Vishwam Prakasate. There is no reality outside of the consciousness. That's what some of the new age physicists are also saying the same thing. Tang prakasamanam eva anusritya suryadikam jyotihi prakasam lavate. Even the sun, the moon, they are also getting the light. They are light from that particular self. Without that consciousness, nothing will have any appearance. Anyatha jadandha mukaprayam vishwam bhavediti. Otherwise, this whole world without the self, without the Atma, will be like a zone of darkness, will be a zone of dumbness, a zone of deafness, because no reality will be available to us without that Atma Tattva which is there in all of us. Ataeva tad anupranitani swotra tvaga akshi rasana घ्राणाख्यानि इंद्रियाणि tad anupranitani. Tad से क्या लेंगे? Tad means atma. Tad atma anupranitani. They are all gaining their energy. They are, yeah. You can kindly mute yourself also. Yeah. So
Sanjeevani ji, kindly mute.
okay. So yes, yeah. So what happens is that, so everything, so he's saying ataiva tad anupranitani means, tad means here that atma anupranitani, swayam jati anupranitani, sotra, the hearing sense organ, twag, the skin, akshi, eyes, rasana, the tongue, ghrana, the ability to smell, akhyani, indriyani, trailokya nataka pradarshana pramoda nirbharam, bigalita ahangda idanta rupa vibhavam शिवोहम अस्मि इति स्वात्मानम अवगम्य सृहद सहृदय दर्शक इव प्रत्यग आत्मदृशे महायोगनिष्ठ पुरुषाय परामृतमय रसत्समत्करणं सम्पादयन्ति. It is a very long but at the same time a very beautiful sentence. Let's make sense of it one by one. You know, the sense organs my ears can listen to what you're saying. Some boys are now playing downstairs, so I can listen to their voice. You can listen to me with the help of the hearing organ we have. Similarly, we are seeing the computer screen through which we are trying to connect with each other. He's saying when we turn them inwards, how do they see the inner reality that is being discussed here? Tadeva anupranitani, and by being influenced, by driven by the energy and the purity and the light of this Atma Tattva, that Shiva Tattva that is there in all of us, these five indriyas, Swatra, Tvag, Aksha, Rasana, Ghrana, Khyani, Indriyani, these five indriyas, Trailokya Nataka Pradarshana Pramoda Nirvaram. So Trailokya, all this drama, and you are watching, right? That Shiva Tattva is watching these sense organs by having carrying the energy and the wish and the purity of this Atma Tattva, Trailokya Nataka Pradarsana Pramoda Nirvaram. So they are watching what is happening. Ranga, Nartaka Atma. That Atma is playing out everything. And what is the play field? Antaratma. That is the Sukshma Sarira. These sense organs can look at the external reality. Internally, what is there? There is no object to be seen as such. So there is antaratma, that's subjectivity. In that subjectivity, they are no more having duality. Like, for example, the eyes will see this computer screen, ears will hear some voice. So the ears, the sotrindriya, and the sound, they are subject object relationship. There is a vishay bhava sambandha. Vishaya is that object and vishay is what is receiving it. Vishay bhava sambandha is there. Now, in this particular, when these indriyas are internally oriented, remember they are being elevated to a very high plane. There is no subject object duality. So what is explaining here is that bheda bhava between vishay that is gone. And then sahridaya. Now when you are playing you're watching a play which is very sweet, or you are obsessed with it, some childhood movies you remember which you had liked as a child. So for example, you are watching maybe you may be reading some cartoon books, or maybe Chandamamas, or you are reading watching Mahabharata or whatever in childhood. Now that was very dear to you, a phantom. of Leafhack or Mandrake the Magician, whatever you read. Now, if somebody gives you, most likely you will also read it. Okay, why? There is some inner wiring, and you are kind of lost in that. You are lost in that particular thing that attracts so much that you do not have yourself as a different identity or reality. You become part of that story. You become part of that thing that you are reading. Similarly, these indriyas who are internally oriented, in case of a yogi, they are like those audience with rapt attention without that bheda buddhi, that they are different. They lose their individual identities. Then what happens? See what happens. It's very interesting. Even if you just think about it, imagine, it becomes so interesting. So what happens is that this happens with a lot of teenagers. There is a boy and there is a lady, there's a girl. There are some teenagers. There's a movie in which this boy is romancing her, or this boy is being harassed by three, four anti-hero actors in that movie. So there are some villains. So they are trying to harass the girl. The boy is trying to save that girl who is fighting with them. Hmm. And you'd find, I mean, olden days, these days now, the whole idea of going to film hall, I mean, none of us go to see movies anymore, not even on internet. But there was a time where people used to go and see movies. Couple of times I've seen that there are some people in the front rows who are super excited about the movies. So when the hero hits somebody, they whistle and they get excited as if they are out to kill those guys who are trying to attack the heroine. They become very heroic in their emotions, as if they are part of that story. Interestingly, the story is a joke. The hero isn't there, he has acted in it. The story itself is just a creation. There is no reality. That is the beauty of it. There is no reality. There is a superficial reality which is created on the film screen, in which there is a guy, on the young guy on the front row or second row, who is actually a worker who's struggling in his individual life. He doesn't even have, forget about marriage and girlfriend. He doesn't have a stable job. He's watching that movie. His reality is different. And he is experiencing the emotions of a scripted reality. That hero is a scripted reality because he's someone else. He's identifying with it and he's experiencing some, heated argument is going on between him and somebody else, or somebody is trying to harm him. And this fellow is overwhelmed with the emotion of revenge. They may be friends at end of that play. End of the day, when light goes, you see what is the reality. People look at their watch, how long the movie. Okay, 1 hour gone, another few minutes we have to watch. If there is a Parker, you immediately come back to reality, isn't it? Now, here, this particular thing is absolutely lost there, and he thinks he's participating in that place. Similarly, in case of a yogi who is uh, such a meditator that for him this whole world is kind of unfolding within himself and he's watching carefully, his own sense organs are like those members of the audience with rapt attention who have lost track of who they are. They do not have any sense of their own identity as a ears and eyes and everything. Everything becomes Lord Shiva. They think I'm doing everything. The Jivatma is thinking he's doing everything. The Indriyas also think they are doing everything because everything is actually Shiva Maya in that level of unity. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing because sometimes you remember as children when you are listening to this Mahisasura Mardini, which is generally played out during Dasara Puja in Eastern India. When you used to listen to it, you're so much. And then when Shumba, Nishumba, they are being killed by Divine Mother, you become super happy. You're overwhelmed with emotion. Oh, the demon has been removed. Nobody is removed. It's just playing out on the radio or on the particular music player. So similarly, he's saying, Sahridaya Darshaka Iva Pratyag Atma Drishe Mahayogi Nishta Purushaya Paramamritamaya Rasat Samatkaranam Sampadayanti. Aham Shiva, Aham Samatkuromi, I'm doing everything. Because they get so much identified, Nartaka Atma, Rangu Antaratma, everything is played out in that subjective level, and they are part of it. Yena asya pamara pranina maya khacharadivihi achadyamana avheda pratha amritarasa sambhuta indriya samuha adhyatmakadi means adhibautika and adhidaivika dukkhamaya sansara saranau naiva paribhramanti. Now that particular yogi whose sense organs are also inwardly oriented and they are being able to see what's happening in the world, they don't look outside, they are turning inwards, and they are being able to witness the game of Lord Shiva which is playing out. That fellow shall not come to samsara again. Why? Because he has returned to that purity state, he has returned to that pure consciousness. This is a very profound thing that he is saying, because that khechari, gochari, dikchari, bhuchari, we have discussed that. That para, pashyanti, madhyama, vaikhari, we have discussed all that earlier. So he's saying that tasmat parinityatah chidadmanaha swarupam na avriyate. That kind of a chidatma, that kind of a yogi, his swarupa never gets covered up by how actually this whole chidatma gets covered up. The chidatma gets covered up because we get externally oriented, because we become absent minded. If we watch our minds, many times you will find when you are young, you have an examination, you have to apply for something, you have to write a paper. Life is much more simple actually. Where as you grow older, you have a lot of responsibilities, but you'll realize at a very deeper level there is a new, very magical form of purposelessness comes in. Life is no more simple. Why is complex? Because you have so many files you are handling. It's like a boss in the office. If you ask him what have you done today, he will not have any clear answer, because you have signed 50 files. So many things are going on, and he's sitting at the center of it. So he's neither responsible for it nor completely he can wash his hands off. He's part of the process. So you have not a very single one pointed attention and movement in life. That is the cause of midlife depression. That is the cause of lack of movement in life and lack of this. That's the kind of spiritual crisis we face. Therefore, he's saying that a person who is thus turned inwards, he's saying parinityatah chidatmanaha swarupam na avriyate. The swarupa is nowhere covered up, because that particular attentiveness in which a person's all sense organs are inwardly oriented and they are watching everything that is playing out. And that means the outside inside dichotomy, which troubles the common people like all of us, doesn't trouble the yogi, because he establishes a new unified continuity between the external reality and the internal reality by understanding the secret that this whole external reality in which so many things are playing out is no different from that absolute reality, which as a shadow also is playing out this whole game in the internal reality called the antaranga adi antaratma. So you have that perfect pure thing, then you have the subjectivity, and then you have the external objectivity, but there is a continuity. When you understand that they are just different levels depending on what wavelength, what focus you're using, from what vantage point you are looking at them. They're just one reality. They are being judged with different names and forms because we want to make sense of them. But the yogi goes inside and is established. Thus, it becomes easy for him. He is not caught up in the micro level dualities, micro level differentiations, because he within himself is being able to establish himself in cosmic unity. And because he's established in that cosmic unity, he is not affected by the disjunctions, the contradictions which generally affects all of us. Now we'll go to the verse number uh, 12. How this sattvic avinaya happens? that he's a perfect dramatist, is everywhere, is happening everything. How does that happen? He's saying dhi vasat sattva siddhihi. This is the sutra number 12. Dhi vasat sattva siddhihi. And what is that sattva? Sattva is sattvika abhinaya. And what is sattvika abhinaya? That we already discussed just a while ago. That when there's a person who is playing out the role of Shiva or Ramachandra on the stage, and you sing, that is real Shiva, that is real Rama, that is what is sattvika abhinaya. When a person is doing tamasika abhinaya, he's just kind of imagining. If you want to have a detailed understanding of it, this is not there in the Sanskrit book, but this is beautifully given in the Dhivasa Sattva Siddhi. You look at these Lakshman Ju, which I have shared with you, he beautifully explains this. So what he's trying to say is that there are 3 or 4 kinds of abhinayas that one can imagine. One is angika, or physical, somebody. So you're playing the role of somebody. Okay. So playing the role of somebody, I remember there was a very funny incident. So we had gone to see a movie because there was some kind of a band in Delhi, and there was some bit of a student activity. Those days I was teaching in a college. So me and another colleague of mine who was also teaching in a college, we said, let's go. There's how to kill time. So in the evening we went to see a movie, and we were sitting. And what is interesting is that there was a film actress. She was actually a middle-aged actress. Neither he nor me ever went for films, so therefore both of us were ciphers. And he's saying, who is this girl? She must be some college student. She looks like a student in this college. I said, no. See, you read the review. She's a film actress. She's already 30 years of age. So she's not a college student. No, but how can she look so innocent? She's a child. I said, yeah, that's why she's paid so well. That is what's her job. She is playing the role of a young girl who is not married. That's how she's supposed to look. Whether she's 40, whether she's 35, makes no difference. Because that is exactly what is her role. And she's playing it out. Don't you confuse her with a student of any. Maybe she has some resemblance of any of your students, but she is not part of Delhi University in no way. Now, this is what is Angika Abhinaya. That film actress is someone else, that is Miss X. She is playing X, let's say M in a movie. So she's XM. She has this identity as a college girl. But she's actually a married woman with a family and children. But she's playing the role of a college girl. You do not think she is somebody in 30. You genuinely feel she is that young college girl, innocent girl, doesn't know anything about the world. She's a hardcore professional, very well-paid actress. But she is playing the role of a girl who is very vulnerable, who is being harassed, and she requires protection of society, which she's not finding. So that's how the role has been given to her. And you think that's genuinely happening. That is what is Angika Abhinaya successful, right? Then he's giving another example of Vachika Abhinaya. Vachika Abhinaya is the girl may be actually saying something, but you genuinely believe that whatever words you are hearing, who is the perceived character? That girl is playing the role of a college student. So you absolutely don't allow in your minds any imagination about what she may be saying. You don't say she's speaking her dialogue. You think she's genuinely saying this, whatever is part of the script. That is Vachika Abhinaya. The words of a perceived character is assumed as real, not of the real person who is playing that role. Okay, that is what is Vachika Abhinaya. Why am I mentioning all this? This yogi, when he's in samsara, he's well established in himself, he's a sadhaka, but he's playing the role of a father. Okay, he's a grihastha, but he's a sadhaka, he's a grihastha. So when son comes back and hugs the mother, she's a sadhika, she's doing sadhana, but she hugs her son, beta, are you hungry? Come, let's have food. Whatever she's saying, she's maybe actually chanting Lord Shiva's name inside. She has nothing to do with all this. But she expresses concern for the son's performance in the examination, of the boy is not feeling good. She gives him food, and everything is playing out. That is what is Vachika Vinaya. Similarly, the Aharya Avinaya. So there is a girl who is playing the role of Ma Sita. In Ramayana, for example, we saw some middle class girl is given that role of playing the role of Ma Sita. And then when you are watching that role of Ma Sita, what do you see? You are absolutely not at all saying that this is a lady who is trying to look like Ma Sita. You say, ah, what beautiful ornaments Ma Sita is wearing. You nowhere refer to that girl with her, the actress's name. You refer to as Ma Sita. That is what is Aharya Avinaya. So the appearance, the dress, the ornaments, everything, you are associating them with the perceived actor. Same with the yogi. So he does that Aharya Avinaya. So he may be a sansari, inside he's a sadhaka. So he will behave like he'll wear a coat and pant and tie and go to a corporate meeting. Inside he's not there, but he'll do all that. And finally, that's Sattvika Vinaya. That is the ultimate thing, he says, Lakshman Joji. That in everyday life, when you see some people like heroes who are very charismatic leaders, they carry the people around them with the influence of that, the power of the character, like Mahatma Gandhi or Bismarck, or the person who closest to it, comes closest to it on television at least, is in modern day Charles de Gaulle in France, or John F. Kennedy in America. So, these are very charismatic characters and who are sort of speaking on behalf of the people. And therefore, everybody, if they are not in a good mood, everybody identifies with it, isn't it? Like Lord Buddha, people identify with it. The yogi story is different. His Sattvika Vinaya is nothing to do with this external world. Here, he is not imagining it. He is not trying to do it in part. He genuinely there and not there. He's doing a Sattvika Vinaya because he is within himself, and there is a clear understanding about the fact that the role is what is being played out. He's none of these. He's no different from Paramashiva. At the same time, he assumes the roles. At the same time, he's watching all this from the inner sanctum of his pure consciousness. Okay, so that is what he's saying. Dhi vasat sattva siddhi. That is what he's saying. And what is it? The commentary. Let's look at it. Evang hi. So Dhivasad is saying Swaprabuddha Yoginascha, this kind of a Swaprabuddha Yogi who is enlightened, Ritamvaraya Eva Pragyaya Eva, from the Ritamvara Pragya that we have done in the Yoga Sutras, that luminous consciousness that he has, Swatma Rupa Avivyakti Bhavati Iti Pratipadyate, that particular Swarupa, that Satvika Abhinaya, that sort of plays out within him. Dhivasa Sattva Siddhi. Dihi Tatvika Vastunaha Swarupa Chintana Janita Vaishadya Yukta Bhavati. What is that dhi, that intelligence which is sharp? Our intelligence is about certain objects outside, understanding about something, isn't it, which is outside of us. It could be a subjective reality, it could be an objective reality. This intellect is not pure. This intellect, in that sense, is different from the pure consciousness. It is a little tainted. It is tempered. It is tempered with assumption of Kartritva and Bhoktitva of the Jiva. When we are able to elevate our being, our consciousness to the highest level, then we do not have the limitations of the self tempering that consciousness. That is what is referred to as dhi here. Tattvika vastunaha Swarupa Chintana Janita, because you are meditating on the Swarupa. As a result of that meditation on the Swarupa Janita, Vaishadya Yukta Bhavati. So it has that expertise, that skillfulness, that purity, that strength, that energy. Tasmacha Sattvasya, that Sattva. And then that what happens? That Tasmacha Sattvasya Sahaja Swatantra Sakti Visputaratmaka Antara Parispanda Chidrupasya Siddhir Avivyakti Sputam Bhavet. So he's saying that when that Sattvic Abhinaya, Divasa Sattva Siddhi, how that happens, how that yogi is being able to do the Sattvic Abhinaya, in very layman's language, this is very jargon loaded, if I can make sense of it, because of that inner realization and that resolution of his consciousness is established in his pure self. Therefore, whatever he is doing is happening, and yet at the innermost sanctum of his self, inner corner of his soul in the self, he is being able to see that everything is playing out. I am the Paramashiva, I am non different from that. And from top to bottom, from Sadashiva till Prithvi Tattva, from the subtlest to the grossest, all these realities at different levels that are happening are not different from Shiva. This particular wisdom kind of manifests only in that particular person whose intellect, whose ability to do meditation, whatever you can call it, has become so pure that there is no more any scope or room for duality, differentiation, contradiction, diversity. It's all there in purity. Where do I get an example? Three, four names that come quickly to our minds is somebody like Ramana Maharshi, who is interacting with people all the time lost in himself. You have the other quick example that comes to our mind is Thakur Ramakrishna Paramahansa, who used to give that example that Jamidar's, the lady who is helping the maidservant in the house of a Jamidar, she's taking care of Jamidar's son throughout the day because she's like a matron to this little boy, son of this landlord. And yet, whole days she's thinking about her own son. Then he also used to give example, well, some Vaishnavas give the example of the gopis. These gopis will be with their husbands and their children, their in-laws, all the time thinking about Lord Krishna. When everybody falls asleep, they will jump through the windows and rush to that place for Rasa Leela with Lord Krishna. And that is beautifully explained by this man who was once the principal of Ravenshaw College, Sanyal. When he's writing about Chaitanya Charitamrita, he beautifully writes this gopis were doing what is that extramarital affair. Extramarital affair here is the love of the divine. The sansara will not permit it. So, love for God is just like an extramarital affair. It is that secret union, the longing for union with God. That is what has to be kept a secret from others. No one will understand it. And he's saying that when a person is thus elevated with pure consciousness, Dhivasa Sattva Siddhihi, and therefore he's able to do that Sattvic Avinaya, is everywhere doing everything, not touched by anyone, is all the time watching everything as a manifestation of God, and he doesn't see himself as any different from that perfect consciousness called Shiva or Paramashiva. Tatha natyepi satvika swarupa avinayasya siddhistu buddhi Buddhi patvat eva jayate. So, because of this, finally, he's saying that because of this pure consciousness, the elevated consciousness, that all of it happens. So, then we will go to the next verse tomorrow, the verse number Siddha. What is that Siddha? Swatantra Bhavaha. And that is the ultimate thing which we have done in this Sambhava Paya. When a person is established in that Bhairava Samavesha, we'll go back to where we started in the first chapter tomorrow. With that, I'll stop here. And any questions? We have a couple of minutes. Any questions anybody has? Or we can do the Santi Mantras. Yes.
Swamiji, one
Please.
clarification.
Please.
Yeah. Uh, so when we are discussing that anyone who is spiritually elevated or liberated person, then what is actually liberated? Because the self is the eternal reality. Is it like the body mind complex? The person who is dealing at this moment with a body mind complex, is that elevated or what?
Yeah, that is what we will discuss tomorrow. That is the answer to your question is exactly the subject matter for discussion tomorrow. So I'm just skipping it for tomorrow because we will have
Okay.
yeah. So let's do the Shanti mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Tat Sat. See you tomorrow.
Also.